It started on a quiet Sunday morning when Michael was repainting his white picket fence, the one he'd just finished after weeks of hard work. Suddenly, three people in matching blue HOA shirts walked up his driveway, clipboards in hand, faces sharp with authority. "You can't change your fence color without HOA approval," one of them snapped. Michael looked confused. "HOA? I don't live in your association," he said, wiping paint off his hands. But they didn't believe him. What followed next would turn this peaceful neighborhood upside down. The HOA board began taking pictures of his house, measuring his grass, and even writing down his license plate. Michael didn't know it yet, but this confrontation would lead to police cars, flashing lights, and a truth that would leave everyone speechless. As he tried to explain, one of the women, Karen, the self-proclaimed president, pointed at his gate and said, "We can fine you $500 a day for non-compliance." Michael chuckled calmly. "You might want to check your records," he replied. "I'm not under your HOA." Karen scoffed. "We'll see about that." She didn't realize she was about to challenge the one man who owned more than she could imagine. 2 days later, Michael woke up to flashing blue lights outside his home. His heart sank, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because he knew exactly who was behind this. Karen had called the police, claiming he was violating neighborhood regulations. Officers approached cautiously, asking, "Sir, are you refusing HOA compliance?" Michael almost laughed. "Officer," he said, "I'm not even part of their HOA." The officers checked records, nothing. But Karen stood smugly with her arms crossed, whispering, "We'll see how long that lasts." One officer apologized to Michael but advised, "Sir, maybe just cooperate. It's easier that way." Michael smiled faintly. Sometimes easier isn't right. That night, Michael went through his files. He had recently purchased property in the area, several lots, in fact. And one of them was the HOA's land. A shocking realization hit him: the HOA didn't own this community anymore. He did. The next morning, Michael printed an official letter. It wasn't a threat. It was ownership proof, a title deed showing that the land beneath their HOA office was now under his company's name. He walked up to the HOA building, handed the letter to Karen, and said calmly, "You might want to sit down before reading this." Karen smirked, dismissing him, but as her eyes scanned the paper, the color drained from her face. "This can't be real," she whispered. The board members gathered, murmuring in disbelief. Michael remained composed. "You called the cops on me for painting my fence," he said softly. "But technically, you trespassed on my property." Karen tried to recover her pride. "We'll have our lawyers look into this." Michael nodded. "Good idea. You'll find my name on the county records." For the first time, the HOA office went silent. The woman who once ruled the neighborhood with fines and threats now sat speechless, because the outsider she called the police on was actually her new landlord. Karen called an emergency HOA meeting that evening. The boardroom buzzed with whispers and nervous faces. "We can't let this stand," one member hissed. "He'll take over everything." Karen slammed her gavel. "We'll fight him legally." But Michael wasn't there to fight, he arrived to negotiate. "I'm not here to destroy your HOA," he said calmly, "but I am here to make it fair again." He revealed how the HOA had overstepped boundaries for years, fining residents without proper authority. That ends today. He proposed a simple deal: transparency, fairness, and no more harassment. Karen's face tightened. "You think you can come here and change our rules?" She spat. Michael leaned forward. "No," he said. "I'm just enforcing my own." The boardroom went silent. For the first time, the self-proclaimed HOA queen realized her power wasn't real anymore. Days later, residents began learning the truth. Michael wasn't a villain, he was the silent investor who'd saved the neighborhood from foreclosure months ago. Without him, their HOA would have been bankrupt. The same people who once complained about him now thanked him for protecting their homes, but Karen refused to accept defeat. She tried to rally residents, spreading rumors that Michael was planning to evict everyone. One night, she left a note on his door: "You don't belong here." Michael smiled, placed the note on his desk. and made one last phone call to his attorney. The next day, Karen received a letter from the county. Her HOA position was officially revoked. The board was dissolved, pending review. And her own property? It sat on a plot now leased by Michael's company. Weeks later, Karen showed up at Michael's doorstep, visibly shaken. "I just wanted to say. I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know who you were." Michael nodded. "You didn't need to. You just needed to treat people right." She looked down. "I guess power made me forget that." Michael smiled softly. "Then maybe this is your chance to remember." He handed her a small envelope, a new lease agreement for the HOA building, under fair terms. No fines, no intimidation. Just peace. For the first time, Karen felt relief, but also regret. The man she'd called the police on turned out to be the one restoring fairness to everyone she had wronged. Months later, the neighborhood looked different, brighter. Freer, kinder. Without Karen's control, people painted their fences, held picnics, and finally smiled again. Michael walked by one afternoon, hearing laughter echo through the streets. A neighbor waved. "Thanks for fixing what they broke," she said. Michael smiled. "Sometimes justice doesn't come from punishment," he said. "It comes from patience." And as the sun set behind the hills, Karen's old HOA sign came down for good, replaced by one that read, "Welcome home." And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.